Unfiltered opinions.
Sometimes you have ideas and you're not quite sure why.
You secure the bag.
Sometimes you meet people and realize there's probably a reason why you stayed in touch.
Just listen.
Sometimes all the pieces just come together by themselves.
I'm Jimmy Moyaha.
And I'm Simon Brown.
Welcome to Insider Exchange.
Welcome to our deep dive. We're diving into the property space. We're diving into the stokvel space. We're diving into just making investments more fashionable, property investments in particular. If you're just joining the show and you're wondering what's happening in studio, go back and check out our Market Matters. There's a big explain as to what happened to Sai this week, why he's missing, and why Moshima is sitting here doing the show with me. Moshima, thanks again for willing to just dive off the deep end. The property conversation is a conversation you and I have been having, and just I think there's so many different angles to it, right? There's so many different perspectives around how do I do it? How do I get into the property space? How do I do it if I can't afford it? All of those sorts of things. And you were just telling me you waited 8 years to now make the move that you're making from a property perspective.
Yeah, because it was especially, okay, I love Cape Town. And it's especially based on having to buy property in an area that I love. I'm a Joburger. Quite happy with Joburg, but I did see that there was a decline in Joburg, and there was, it's always cyclical, and I wanted to be somewhere that I also would love to go to without having to pay rent in Cape Town, because the rent then becomes quite ridiculous at the price that it's currently going. And it was following through the trends of actually the parts of Cape Town that were semi-dilapidated, and that they've got, I hate the word gentrification, but it is kind of like, in that sense, cleaning up. Maybe let's just put it that way. And because of that, the property prices become a bit lower. With that in the future, then it becomes an appreciation, because then when it looks cleaner, then people want to live in there. So that has been my 8 year, trying to, it wasn't just looking at one particular area, it's just finding an area where I knew that, okay, at this point, the trajectory is quite up with appreciation in prices.
It's quite interesting because the Cape Town conversation has been a very hot topic, with everybody saying Cape Town is unaffordable and those sorts of things. And you think about just property in general, and you think about, obviously, interestingly, it lines up with the other land conversations that are taking place. But I think about a company like McDonald's, where their business model fundamentally is securing good property sites, not necessarily how many McDonald's stores they can put up, but it's about, is the site, that's it, right? Is the site convenient for us from a property perspective? And they buy out their property pieces. I don't know if they still do that, but last I checked, they bought out the land upon which the McDonald's would sit on, and you could have the lease to the McDonald's and you could sell that lease to someone else, whatever. But McDonald's as a business then fundamentally is a property business.
Exceptional business concept. I mean, just think about the McDonald's that are around here in Joburg. They're very much in prime spots. I didn't really think, so that
the freestanding ones. Obviously, the ones in the malls are a bit different to navigate in that. Yeah. But you think about all the freestanding ones and look at where they're located. It's a property play more than it is a convenience play. And in the long term, what does that do for a market? When you think about, you look at the Cape Town example. I mean, you say you've lived in Cape Town before. When do you remember Cape Town looking a certain way, or prices being at a certain point versus where they are now?
So I'm not necessarily have lived there, but prior, apparently, Sea Point and Green Point were a bit of a slum. And I mean, if you look at it now, those property prices have gone from slump prices to, it's crazy. If you want to live in Cape Town, unless you've got the balance sheet for areas in that part, then it's easy for you. But you need to, when you look at the properties, kind of move outside of town, slightly outside of town. But if you move completely outside of town, you'll get more reasonable. But the economies of scale in terms of your traveling to town and back, I mean, unless you're a digital nomad of some sort. But that was the point of my thinking as well. At that point, is thinking, okay, if Greenpoint and Sea Point were able to change as much as they have, then there is a saturation in town that's going to disseminate to the closer parts. And it's a natural kind of dissemination into that. I think from going from Greenpoint, that's it. Let's not going to Bantry Bay and
Bantry Bay, Camps Bay, that side of the world.
Yeah, that side of the world.
Yeah.
But then moving on the other end, where it would then be the city, the ICC, Woodstock, Salt River, that becomes more reasonable. But the trick is trying to catch it when it's low. Similar to what we talked about with Sasol. Once it's dipped, it's a time to get in.
We'll get into Sasol. That's coming up later in the show. But on the property side of it, how do you then have it be accessible? Because property in itself, whether you're a first-time buyer, whether you're a repeat buyer, is not a cheap exercise, right? There's so much that goes into purchasing a property, finding the right property, all of those sorts of things. And if someone's looking at it from kind of an investor standpoint, I've often had conversations to say, this thing can be done if we do it together. Because the moment you start thinking about, and I've written a piece about this. I wrote a piece about stokvels at some point last year, I think, that was published. It's up on one of the blogs that I write as well.
Let's take a look, yeah.
Yeah, stokvels being one of the most powerful tools that exists in the black economy and in the South African economy. Just that concept of being able to pool resources together and then go out and do something.
And the funny thing is, it's doable when you're doing it as a group, right? But as you individually, it's a bit difficult for you to save yourself as a stokvel. So the stokvel puts those rules that give you that mandatory thing that you have to pay in, which is an excellent part of now when you sort of moving it, because previously it's for groceries, to help you with certain things. And when it was your month, you were either going to extend your house or, now it is now putting it into a particular fund, let's just say a property fund, where we all could share the costs of
what's coming up.
Coming up. So at a beautiful destination that that you all like, let's just Richards Bay or just Cape Town, anywhere in Mpumalanga, then you pool into that together and you can all share it. So there is that part of an investment. And obviously if you all decide to sell, then it is it's an appreciation of that, and you've enjoyed the benefits of living there. There is that part of having to buy physical property or also just buying the shares itself.
No, but I think for a lot of people,
timer,
it's the shares are one thing, right? So you can have a share portfolio, but there's something that comes from the utility of actually owning the property. So let's say a bunch of friends, and I want to get into that as to whether or not it's better to be investing with friends or investing with family, and the debates that come from there. But the utility that says, if Jimmy and Moshima go and buy out a 2-bedroom apartment in Cape Town and we have that property, it means that we now have a place we can use. If I fly to Cape Town for holiday, if I fly to Cape Town for business meetings, there's a place I can now use. I don't have to rent out accommodation, right?
Exactly.
So I don't get that kind of utility from investing in a growth point that might own property at the V&A waterfront. It's all nice and well to have the share appreciation, but I think with property, the different element is that there is utility. I can make use of it. I don't have to sit there and watch its value appreciate while I don't get to enjoy it.
Correct, which I think is probably more valuable at this case, specifically for in a destination like Cape Town. I think it's something I would totally get into if it was a pool of you and I or 3 of us, and we just have that share, because the capital to put in is reduced. It's not the amount, and unless you're looking to move in permanently, then that's a different story. But it is also it's the utility as well as getting the benefit from the appreciation in the price, and just knowing, look, the growth rate of property in Cape Town is high. So I think it is we're moving towards that. And stokvels are actually starting to move towards that, which for me is quite thrilling, because then one can create their own portfolio. And on the topic about friends, and
that's the thing, because now we look at the downsides, right? So do I do it with friends or do I do it with complete strangers? And you mentioned something about when we need to exit, right? So if now there's 10 of us in a property and only one person wants to exit while the other want to hold on, do we now go and find a replacement investor, or do we now take up that person's share amongst the 9 of us? Because now those are the considerations that come alive when you now have other partners that are invested with you.
I would personally think for the semantic, it's probably best with people you don't know.
Okay, why?
Because then the human emotion, and don't get me wrong, there's something I am willing to do. That's something I've been calling my friends, saying, let's just pull in, this whole thing of having to get land and then you all build each other's, pull in that. That's something I dream of. but these are very close friends. But even with friends, you know what, Jimmy? In fact, you just have to get the legal processes right. That there should not be no emotions involved in that. If anyone crosses the line or if anyone wants to do that, there is repercussions, or you will then, it's just getting the legals.
Just be on the same page kind of
just
thing.
be on the same page. And no one can be like, oh, we're friends. You're like, but the paper, you know.
Protect everybody. I suppose
everyone,
look at the
yeah.
paperwork as we're not doing this because we don't trust anybody. We're doing it because we just
Which
want
is
to
key.
cover everybody.
You have to have the paperwork.
Yes.
Because the emotions can run dry. Families have ended because of these things, of friendships. You know what I'm saying? But
It's true.
It's the paperwork being done, but we all get to enjoy a piece of land and still be able to profit from it when it's time to exit.
One of the comments that I saw on X, I think it was late last year, was something about it's not the bond, it's not the property, it's the cost of the rates, the taxes, the maintenance, the upkeep, and all of that. And I suppose if it's a group effort, then you don't feel it as much, right? Then you say, okay,
It's
no,
such an excellent
my
idea.
contribution towards this is 200-300 rand, but 300 rand from 10 different people is 3,000 rand, and that whole property is then maintained, I suppose.
It's like a timeshare, right?
It is, right? It's a
Yeah.
timeshare, but without the... I think the timeshare concept was good at some point in life, right? I think about it back when it was around in my parents' and my grandparents' era. But the challenge with the timeshare thing was I couldn't use the property when I wanted
the
to use the
thing.
property.
Yes, because
So
it's
now if we build our own rules, and now the community and the stokvel says, oh, are you there this weekend? No, we'll take it this other weekend. No, we'll rent it out this other weekend.
And besides, it's a smaller collective than the timeshare. Timeshare was a bigger, it was a scheme with whole. But this is, WhatsApp group, and we kind of chat. Listen, guys, I'm in. Is anyone in there at that time? I think it is the most conducive. It's something that I think a lot of us are going to start getting into in terms of not owning the property, because owning the property on your own and you're not there for the entire year is just a cost that is.
That's something else, hey?
Because you need the uptake. Someone needs to be there to be flushing. Just something to.
What about the element of the property manager? Because now you've got guys that have the properties. I might have 2, 3, 4, 5 properties. I hire a property manager. I pay them a fixed amount and they're responsible for managing those properties.
It makes the deal sweeter.
Do you then do that even as a collective and say,
think
hey
so.
guys, we have day
Run
jobs.
it like a business, yes.
Run it like a business. Okay,
Run
there
it
we
like a
go.
business.
Run your property investment like a business.
And
Okay.
if it happens to be empty, let's say we all agree that, okay, right, December time, no one seems to be wanting to go the part, because you can Airbnb it or something, that is additional income, but the income gets into a pool of some sort.
Or you put the income back into the property. So we say
Yeah.
we're not going to generate any income from this. If we rent it out for X amount, all of that money goes into refurbishing it because you still get the benefit of that refurbishment.
And it reduces your property.
That's it. So
expenses.
you have Smeg appliances
or-
in your fancy property, in your holiday home kind of
You
thing.
know what I'm saying? And it's just the legalities of it and the emotion that's put into it. But the rest of it just sounds like a very credible
It sounds like a dream, right? But and I think about it from a dream perspective, and I'm like, but then if this is something that works out like that, why have we not done it at scale? And obviously challenges like not having the disposable income to invest into it and that sort of thing, those things come up as legitimate challenges as to what prevents us from going down this road. But I suppose another part of it is the fighting that happens and the lack of trust or the breach, or you
yes.
broke this, you must replace this, or the normal things that come with being human. And that's probably what we get around in the contracts, as you said. The legal side of it is what governs how we then
also
navigate
how
that.
the banks are actually offering the bond itself. So I don't know.
Yes.
If you're saying, oh no, I need
That's
property
another
for
thing.
5 mil and I just need $1 million, they'll be like, where are you getting the rest? And I think now they're becoming more conducive to that since it becomes a topic. But it is either you're putting in hard cash or you're getting the loan, but you'd have to explain it to a bank that I'm part of this.
So you're saying a hindrance to this is the financial system that we have. And as you say that, I agree with you 100% because I think about the times I've gone to a bank to have this conversation, and the conversation is, are you applying in your individual capacity? Are you applying in a joint capacity with some partner or with a family member or whatever it is? And then they assess all of everybody's kind of individual profiles and combine them and all of that sort of stuff. And I know with a stokvel, it's operated differently. And I know there's guys that have property stokvels. I must just remember who they are, and we'll have them potentially come onto the show, I suppose, to talk about this. But for our community, for the audience out there, for those that are watching and tuning in, I definitely want to get your experiences around the property space, right? Some of the questions you've had, some of the experiences you've had, some of the challenges you've faced. I mean, we've outlined some of them in this conversation, but that's definitely not the full exhaustive list of challenges that people go through. And I think the financial one is probably going to be such a massive headache for anyone thinking about this. But please share your experiences with us. Give us your comments, give us your feedback. We love to hear what you're experiencing, and perhaps what you're experiencing might inform what someone else goes through, and it might help them make a better decision for themselves. And we'd love to see how the conversation then unfolds from a property investment point of view. But you were saying?
So I was saying, unless, another cool way of doing it possibly is if you have a trajectory of when you want to buy the property. So for the 5 years, let's just say you all decide in 5 years, you will then look for something to buy. Within that 5 years, you accumulate the capital, because once you have a bigger deposit, the bank
makes it easier to finance.
It easier, but you, as a group, if we decide now,
But then don't I miss out on the opportunity? So in that time, what if that property gets sold, or the property we're eyeing gets sold?
No, you don't necessarily.
So don't look
at
at specific property.
Just
say,
area and research on the area.
This is what we want to achieve.
This is what we want to achieve, and by this amount. So I'm trying to get a pool of my friends to do that, but this is for land, though, that will at some point try and retire on.
Okay.
But it's getting a date on when we're going to start putting in this money, so that and then also just getting your ducks in the row in terms of the legalities of that, and maybe presenting it as a corporate to a bank, unlike an individual.
No, I was thinking that. I was thinking going the extent of registering a company with the CIPC, getting that company. You can also register with the South African Stokvel Association. So you're governed by a Stokvel mandate, and do the whole thing the way it should be done. And then after that, everybody's kind of a beneficiary to the Stokvel. You've got the terms, you've got the legal side of it covered. I mean, speak to a lawyer, get all of that stuff in place.
I think it really is doable, and it is probably one of the best ways of personally owning property in an area that's quite expensive and has
with multiple areas, because now if I qualify, and here's perhaps this is something we could look into. If I qualify for R1 million loan, right? Why is it that I can't split that? So in America, I can put down a down payment of a certain percentage and then kind of like free roll the rest of it and all of that. In South Africa, they kind of have you take up the whole loan, and then,
you can put in a huge deposit, though.
No, but I'm trying to think of it without the deposit perspective. So I'm looking at it to say, if Jimmy qualifies for R1 million, Mushima qualifies for R1 million, between the 2 million, instead of buying one 2 million rand property, why are we then not allowed to split it across 5 or 6 properties at a lower cost and diversify our own risk from that perspective?
That's if you're just buying property in order for buying property, not necessarily to utilize it.
But it's investment property, which also now attracts a different level of tax and all of those conversations. Yeah. Okay.
Got my mind racing. I'm feeling I'm just like, wow, this is something that we should, and I think it is gaining traction in that aspect, that people are like, we could do more with the Stokvel money than just consume other things. Let's invest in it. I've been waiting for this opportunity to be coming on board, but obviously it needs a collective to start to make it come into fruition. And I think this topic will probably get a lot of people's minds racing.
And that's the point, right? That's why we have these conversations, is to share our experiences, to share what we know, what we don't know, to learn from each other and see if we can just improve our own financial lives and the financial lives of others. I think what we're going to do is we're going to look into the property Stokvel side of it, right? I know there are property Stokvels out there. I've spoken to some of them. I might see if we can reach out to them, get them back on the show, see how they've set up things. We might even look to see if we set up our own and see how we build that.
Exactly.
I'm just thinking about...
us?
No, but because you do the math as well, right? If we do the math on... I think they did the math. It was an unrelated example, but someone did the math on the amount of people in the country. If we all contributed 200 rand or something. Oh, it was the alcohol thing. Someone said that South Africans spent 7.7 billion rand on alcohol in the December month, and they worked it out that if 40 million people had spent 256 rand a month on this alcohol or whatever it is, we got to or 256 rand a day or something like that. We got to the 7 billion. But that just gives you an idea of the power that numbers have, right? Give us your feedback around this. If we were to build a proper property stokvel, set it up, have it registered, have it governed by the Stokvels Association, have everything built in place for you such that you could deposit 500 Rand a month. That was it. Would that be something people would be keen to do? We'd love to get your thoughts on that, because if that's how we change everybody's lives and that's how we start to change our own lives, then that's it. I for one, I don't know about you guys, but I for one would love to have a property in Cape Town that I could just go to, know that I can stay there without paying an exorbitant amount of money, and potentially even know that I can go there without needing a passport. Those are those Cape Town passport conversations will start up again. But yes, we're going to leave the deep dive there because we've run out of time. We'd love to get your thoughts and your feedback on those particular points that we've left out there. We're going to come back to them and we'll give you feedback on them next week. We'll give you feedback, or even after that, as we continue with the rest of the year. If you guys are keen on setting up a property stokvel, give us a shout, let us know. Yeah, see, we've already got our first sign up there, right? So let's see how that goes. Until next time, we'll leave the deep dive on that note. And we wrap things up with our investor insights, continuing the conversation with me as has been throughout the day. Hosting the show with me is Moshima Gama. She's standing in for Sai, who's out. We're going to be taking a look at some interesting models, not the kind that sit in a GQ magazine, but the kind that Moshima builds. And then we're going to look at our wall. We're going to update the wall, see what's happening there, and see if we are liking anything in particular. Moshima, Valentine's Day is coming up on Friday. What model are you building? Apparently, it's not to do with that. It's unrelated.
It's just
what's
to
happening?
Give me a sign if the guys are a hard buy.
Okay.
And if they're a sell, then I know that it's not. Yeah.
Okay.
So leading up to it, I just have to kind of put in their names and see what the trend is doing for that. They pass trend into the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get into the model in a second. Before we get into the model, community out there, I'm going to do you guys a solid, right? And I'm going to be a good wingman. If anyone would like to take Moshima out for Valentine's Day, she may or may not be open to that. Please don't come here with offers that are below. You know the quality of the woman that sits across from us. Please, please bring those offers through. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get some feedback next week on how the Valentine's Day went. That's all I'm going to say on the matter. We'll set up chats. We'll see what offers come through. She will decide the offers. We don't have any say in that, but don't say I didn't put you guys on, right?
I'll put the data in the model.
So tell me about this model you're building. What's happening?
All right. So look, I'm looking at a whole lot of stocks on it because I do analysis on commodities, equities, currencies, and so forth. And this is looking up at charts for all of those. So I needed something. It started off as just something that will give me signals on if sentiment is changing in any of the shares without me having to get into the chart or looking at the charts individually. So it started off as that, change in sentiment. So I just built a model based on macros based on that. Tell me when there's a change in sentiment. And then I started getting into a rabbit hole. And I was like, so if it tells me change of sentiment, will it tell me when to actually buy or
when
sell?
to act on that, yes.
When to act. And if it is a point of acting, is it a good signal to act or is it a weak signal? So in it, it will
Strength
say,
of the signals
look,
as
it's
well.
reached a
Yes,
particular
yes.
level, but it's not a strong buy or it's not a strong sell. So I've been working
How
on
long
this.
have you been building this? Because this sounds
5
like 6
years.
years of work. Okay, 5 years of work.
Oh,
All
this
right.
is it's actually going to be my 6th year.
There we go. 6 years
I'm
of
in
work.
a 6-year cycle like gold, yeah. So I'm hoping it started off as just being for equities. And now I've moved into CFD trading.
You're
which
just going
is
you're just digging deeper and
That's getting
deeper
into
and
an
deeper.
hourly and a daily and not
no.
necessarily a monthly and a weekly. It's a lot of fun, but because I'm like writing the macros myself, you can sit there for hours trying to figure out why it's not working. But it is so thrilling once you see it all concatenating and coming together. So that's what the model is about. So
That's
I literally,
crazy.
if you ask me something, I just pull up, I'm like, what is it saying? And then it will kind of give me a signal that it's time to look at a chart because there's a particular development. So if it's trading sideways, it's not worth my time.
But you're building the model on your research and your style
got the
of
human
analysis.
element,
So
yes.
it's not saying just look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's saying this is what I look at as Moshima.
So it's a 2-part.
Right?
So it is what is happening on the chart without telling me. So If there is a strong movement, there was a fake out rather, it would say, look, it went there, but it's a fake out. And then when it comes, then that is the part of telling me what the chart is doing. And then the analysis part, that's the two-part part that will say, is it a good buy or not based on the candle performance.
The other things that you build into the model.
Yes.
That's quite interesting. I
I'll
look
show
forward
you
to
it sometime.
I look forward to seeing what this thing looks like when I imagine it's something that you're always going to be working on and tweaking and adjusting, and as you learn new information, you
Learning
build
to
new
put it
things.
in,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So it is something. I mean, once it's complete, I'll share it with you. And tell me how it works. Just back testing at this point. It's a lot of back testing.
I can imagine.
And then you're thinking, oh no, it shouldn't have told me because of this anomaly not being added on. So it's a lot of that. But yeah, that's basically all my time. So if I don't have a date on Valentine's Day, I'm definitely building my model.
Okay. No, we'll come back to that. No, you can't be working on a Friday night when you should be enjoying the night out. But I want to look at how you got to that point. Like, because building a model, and from an investor point of view, I mean, we have every week on Investor Insights, we try and look at something new. We try and enhance how people approach investments. And I suppose for you to get to a point where you're building a model, you have to have thought something's not
There has to be, yeah.
sufficient for me. I'm not satisfied with what I'm currently getting out of the information. And as I say, that gold has just touched $2,900 an ounce.
Shut the front door.
I'm not
Are you
kidding.
serious?
We are at all-time highs, $2,900 a fine ounce.
$90 away from that.
That's it, from your target in the Market Matters. If you missed Market Matters, go back. It's under our live tab on our YouTube page. If you're listening to the audio, it was the first segment in our audio. But the levels that were touched on and mentioned by Mushima in that segment are already coming to light here, and we haven't even moved through the end of the episode. We'll come back to gold. I want to look at some other things on our wall now.
Right.
We've had a couple of things on the wall that we've been tinkering with, that we've just been kind of trying to figure out. Where do we put them? How do we like them? And how do we feel about certain stocks? Sure. I want to start with Sasol. Purely because Sasol's now at new all-time lows. It was at 52-week lows last week. We're now closer to 70 Rand a share here. This is a stock at some point that was at 600 Rand a share. And so I know that your model has something to say about this. What's happening there?
So unfortunately, it's just been giving me a sell the whole time. So it's just saying, not now, not now, not now. But let me tell you that I am waiting with bated breath for the Sasol to go up, because, in fact, it's all-time low, Jimmy, which is very possible in terms. So the all-time low was literally at 20 Rand.
Yeah,
77.
that was the pandemic. That was the oil price
March
getting
20.
to zero.
Yeah.
That chaos.
So, I mean, cyclically, that psychologically should be a point where, so there probably could be downside towards there before we see a little bottoming up thing happening. And from the model, it just seems as if the downside is likely to continue. Which then means for people who are not in, people like you and I, who have been
waiting with bated breath.
means we need to kind of wait a little bit more. It looks as if it trades through, what's that level right there? 71.20. And it's RS Weekly. RSI is not even that oversold. Ooh.
You say 71 Rand 20. We were at 73 Rand this morning. Let me check if we're anywhere near 71.
So we're
73.40 at the moment.
Yeah, so 71.20 is key support from 2020, in fact. So if it breaches that could just cause quite a thrusted downside to that 20 mark.
Okay, so
that means we must wait still.
Okay, so we're waiting for 71 Rand 20-ish to see what happens there.
Next level would then be 42.
That is
and then 42,
scary,
it's
eh?
a quick move to 20.
Yeah.
Then that's when we could then, I feel at that point, psychologically, there would then be that kind of top, that we just move sideways until we then see that upside. So in that sideways, still we can't get in. This is it's very much a wait and see game with this. Like if you get in at this point and thinking, oh, it's nice and cheap, you might suffer the consequences of it falling to 20 Rand. So it's a wait and see game. And what the model is literally going to be saying is, at this point, it's saying stay short. It's look, keep the downside's continuing. And at some point, it would then say, look, there seems to be a change in sentiment. Give you a warning until it literally breaches a key level that says it's time to get in.
Okay.
As I said, at this point, it's like stay out.
So what is your model liking then at the moment? What are you looking at, and what's interesting?
It's given a nice flag. It's been giving green flags on property stocks since 2020. And now something which I've been waiting for as much as I've been waiting for with Sasol is the telecoms.
Okay. So
seems to be
MTN,
some
Vodacom,
newfound love
those
on
likes.
telecoms,
Okay.
Except Vodacom.
Except Vodacom. All right.
Yeah,
I thought
and-
you were going to say except Telkom, but okay.
No, that's the funny thing. Okay, now I'm not going to put fundamentals into it.
No, of
but
course.
Telkom. So Vodacom has got the silly way. It's just so erratic. The movement's so erratic that you feel like you've invested and then you can lose the money quickly. And I think it's based on a lot of the fundamentals and the whole please call me. You know, the having to pay off. I'm not too sure what the status quo is with.
That's still happening. That ongoing case that's
think they
gone to
have
the
to pay
Constitutional
the-
Court.
the
Yes.
gentleman out now.
Yes. So the amount has yet to be determined. I think we're still appealing that case in the
Okay, so
Court.
that's the
Dark cloud.
the dark cloud or the conundrum about it that's not causing that. Even if there is that upward move, you may just be stuck in a sideways band. So that's particularly why I'm not liking Vodacom at this point. Is until this dust has settled is when we will then see that movement. But funny enough, your MTNs, which I mean MTN being,
Which, as you say, MTN bounced perfectly off of 80 Rand.
and what I particularly love about MTN is it broke out of that bull trend, bear trend rather, and this is a long-standing one, right?
Long-standing from 2022 February.
No, even 2016.
2016. Oh, yes. Okay. So 2015. Okay. Yeah. 2014, 2015, we came down. Then we pushed back up, but we didn't go out and take out those highs. And now we kind of can. Okay.
So can you see the vibe?
Yeah.
Now it's broken out. And what I like, something that's very, very common with shares that break out, it's called a return move. So it breaks out, then it goes back towards the breakout point. And I call it the point of kind of trying to feel is this truly a real breakout? And I would like many shares to do that, because once there is that and it doesn't really return back into its bear trend, that's what sets off the
That's the
bias.
confirmation
That's
of
the
saying we're
confirmation.
actually moving.
And this is like literally what we're seeing with MTN. Blue
Blue Label.
Blue Label has always been my favorite since 2020. If you look at it right now, it's
Actually, yeah, I haven't looked at Blue. I haven't looked at Blue Label in a while.
I've been
More affordable than its peers at
more
R6.50, I
affordable.
suppose.
So that is one of my top pick from a while back.
Okay.
MTN and Telkom. I mean, yeah. I called it. It broke out of its. Blue broke out in 2024, and yeah, it was called a buy at 4.
We still need
Rand.
to. We still need to kind of take out R7.50. I think.
Yeah, that would
if
be
I'm
the
looking
key,
at it. Yeah, key level at the moment.
That's a key level. Once it gets out of there, then I mean, what is the highest it is traded? This is very much a buy.
Now, highest is traded as 22 Rand ish.
I mean, look at that. You're
around
getting it
2016.
at these prices.
Yeah, you're getting it at less
It's a
than
nice buy and
25%.
hold,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
For as long as that uptrend is intact. And if I do that little Dow theory thing, it looks like it's on that top that once it's breached, it could then go to that 750 quite quickly. So it would be.
And
Blue.
Vodacom?
Vodacom did a nice move, and I think it just followed its peers. It just didn't want to be left behind. It was like
I'm seeing it now at 120 Rand a share, kind of bouncing off of 87, 85 ish. Still a long way away from
still a long way around.
180 Rand highs of 2017 or so. But as you said, we're not too optimistic about this at the moment.
Not
We're
yet,
liking
not
Blue.
yet. We're liking Blue.
We're liking MTN. MTN's already on our wall. I think we have Blue Label on the wall as well, if I remember correctly. Blue Label Telecoms would be
I
there.
would add Telkom as well.
We had Telkom as... I remember the conversation Si and I had around Telkom was we felt Telkom was stale. They weren't doing much. And they broke out from the 20 Rand to 30 Rand level, but we didn't see them going back towards 40 Rand or even 50 Rand. What are you seeing there?
I mean, it's a pity. I would have shown you the return move vibe, but it's fine. But it's already done that whole breakout return, and then it's very similar to so in that, when you saw that staleness, it's because the share price wasn't doing much. In that, are we breaking up for real? Is this happening? And now when the buyer is seeing that it's happening, is what we're seeing at this point. It's actually now trading in the second phase. Remember the 1, 2, 3 phases?
Yes.
So the second phase is going to get a bit more steeper.
So this is that phase to get in.
It's a phase to get in.
Okay.
It's a phase to get in. With MTN, though, I just want to warn you that just wait a little bit, because that RSI is extremely overbought on the weekly chart. So wait about a week or two before you want to get in, because you'd get in a bit cheaper than current levels. But yeah, Blue and Telkom are just saying you can invest at any time from today.
Yeah, because I'm looking at I've just put up a Telkom chart. Okay, yes, today was a good day for Telkom.
Nice one.
Yeah, today's up about 4% already. We had gotten to that 34 Rand and kind of hit, so we'd gone to 36, kind of come down to 32, and now we're back at 36 again. So very interesting from that breakout from around 26 Rand a share where it just refused to move
You're
from.
right. So now you remember that was key resistance. It broke and then got back to that 26, didn't infiltrate.
Now
so that's what's
we're-
caused, that's what's
okay.
attracting the buyers. And also breaking out of a flag pattern, which is quite, and once it does break from there, that's a huge move. Yeah, we could see.
It is. I mean, at some
we could see it
point,
go through that $40.
that's it. At some point, Telkom was at 100 Rand a share around 2019. Even pre-2010, it was higher than that. But I mean, Telkom's obviously had their issues with being partly SOE. They've had issues with their SwiftNet business and unbundling that business for 6 billion Rand. But these are stocks to watch. So we need to update our wall. We need to update Telkom. We need to update Blue Label. MTN we have on the wall. We might even need to downgrade Vodacom. I don't remember where we had it on the wall. But telecoms is a sector you're liking.
Sector, yeah, I'm starting to like that because it's like a sasol. Sorry to always compare. It's just been falling, really not giving us. But this type of move is now, and you can tell that it's a clever money coming in with the celerity of the movement. It's just the asset managers who obviously don't want to disrupt the market, but they've been buying gradually.
Quietly,
and
yeah.
every time it pulls back, they've been buying. And now you can tell that certain retailers are starting to catch that wind, which is why we're seeing this splurge of upside.
What sectors are you staying away from at the moment?
It just, at this, for a near term, I would stay away from banks at this point because there's always this correlation between gold and banks. So when gold goes up, banks tend to struggle.
Okay.
You should look at that correlation. And with what's happening currently,
Yeah, with the gold
price,
conversation we
I
had.
think that the banks are going to struggle a little until such time as the gold stocks start to pull back. So you might see a bit of just watch that correlation. It's quite a interesting one where there's a switch out of gold into, I don't know why it always kind of happens. So if one goes up, the other falls, and the other one, the other one goes. So if you invested in both, you should then know that one is going to pull back, but one would make up, for that loss. So just be mindful of that correlation out of gold.
Out of the banks. That's very interesting. I think that's an interesting note to leave the show on. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Mushima, thank you ever so much for standing in and for being an amazing co-host.
I love you guys.
We absolutely love having you here. You are welcome anytime. I know our community would love to have more of you on the show. Folks, like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the things that you must do to get us to our next 20,000. Thanks for tuning in, as always. We're going to leave the show on the interesting note that we have been doing for the last couple of weeks. That's our unfiltered opinion of the week. And the honor goes to our honored guest to give us that opinion.
Okay, unfortunately, sorry. It's about the Trump still.
Okay.
All right, I know. I thought I was going to talk about the pineapples and pizza, but I'm just putting a different spin to it.
Okay.
In terms of him being a changer of some sort from what. So I think, unfortunately, he's become that clown. Am I allowed to say that?
You're allowed to say anything.
Okay, he's become that clown, that sacrificial lamb that we're in now, where he is thinking the change is meant for the US, but it's actually disbanding all the shackles that it had created previously with the aid and holding us in chokehold. So if you look at it that way, that he is starting to implement that type of change in order for that independency in a lot of countries, particularly in Africa. You can see a lot of the European countries also thinking, wait, what is happening here? There's a little murmuring revolution in terms of changing how policies were then to newer policies that are beneficial, even despite. So yes, he may be what he is, but just watch the changes that he's making that could be quite beneficial for the continent and just investors in general. Right now, just ride the wave of, the market seemed to love him. So just ride that wave.
The Orange Mussolini is unshackling the world, and Mary Mary wouldn't have been prouder if they knew what would be happening to their song now. On that note, until next time, investing isn't hard. Just try it.